All right, in this recording, I'm going to show you a high-level overview of workflows in Attio. I think I could probably spin up like 20, 30 different videos for just workflows because I think there's a ton to cover. And really, when you think about automations, you can kind of do anything and everything. So what I'll try to do in this walkthrough is keep things quite high level, just to show you what it looks like inside Attio's workflows functionality. And then maybe in future videos, I'll go a little bit deeper and actually use some tactical examples, right? So for this one, you can see under automations, there's workflows and sequences. Sequences are, think of your like sales emails, basically, that you can have in a sequence of several emails go out to certain prospects. And workflows are your automation engine inside of Attio, right? And so you can see that I have a whole bunch here that I've created. This is for my own workspace, so it's not as robust as some of the clients, but this is what it looks like. And I will just click on one and show you what that looks like. Let's do this one. So my website is currently hosted on Webflow. So whenever someone fills out a Webflow form, it receives that information about the form and then starts creating or updating records across person, company, and deal. So as with any automation, you start with a trigger, right? So the first step is going to be a trigger, which is webhook received. And this is a webhook that we receive from Webflow. So we set it up inside of Webflow. We say, hey, whenever there's a form submission, please send that data over to this webhook URL that Attio is hosting, right? And when we receive it, we parse the JSON. So the data is going to be in this notation called JSON, and we are going to parse that so that we can look at individual attributes. So think of it like Webflow is sending us an Excel file, and then parsing it is kind of like looking at each individual column, right? And so we're looking at the contact company, the company's URL, the contact's email, name, company size, overview, workflow. This is like some of the questions that I ask. And then you also have to define what kind of output it is, right? So I think pretty much all of them are string, pretty straightforward. And then you can also give them an alias so that it's easier to understand what it is. And then what you do is you can start creating or updating a record, right? So I, based on the form submission, I try to see if there is an existing company record in my CRM with the same domain. If not, then I create it with the company name, and so on and so forth. I do the same thing for the person, same thing for the deal, and I might, attribute the source to inbound via website, right? And then I had to put this delay in for 10 seconds because I noticed that if I try to create a note on the deal right after, it doesn't work. And then I create a note on the deal with all of the form submission data so that there's a little bit more context on what the person, what the inbound lead wanted, right? And then what do I do here? I update a record, so I associate a deal, right? So after I created a record, right, and then I update the person as well. Anyways, that's what it looks like, right? And then I also post a message to Slack so that I get notified immediately, so I can reach out to them if I want to. There's a whole bunch, right? The other thing that I want to show you was this one, manual. Okay, so the trigger here is more interesting, kind of, in that you can manually trigger it. So they have this record command where you can literally go to a person and say, I am going to click on this and then run a workflow, right? So I can manually enrich a person's LinkedIn URL, for example, if I wanted to. And so that's kind of interesting. Oh, workflows. So that's kind of interesting. If we just look at a new workflow and how to build that, right? First, it's going to set a trigger. So as I said, there's all these triggers that you can use. You can say manually run this when manually invoked by a person. Record command means what I just showed you. You can like click a person or a company or a deal or whatever record there is, and then say run this automation or workflow on that record. Or you can do it, when a record gets created, or when a record gets updated, or when it gets added to a list, or when an attribute is updated. Or a task is created, all of these, right? Or because I stitch Attio with a lot of other tools in my stack, like Webflow, Clay, AirOps, and other tools, webhook received is a common trigger that I use for my workflow. So let's just say I will do it on a record command, and let's say that the object that I'm going to run it is on a person. Then you have your non-trigger blocks. So create or update a record, create a record, lists, sequences. This is somewhat new, so that's kind of interesting. Now you can automatically enroll someone in a sequence. So let's say, for example, if a Webflow inbound comes in, right, I might actually say, let's research this person, and if they pass the ICP criteria, I know exactly what I want to send them anyways, so I'll just enroll them in a sequence with a pre-written email, for example, right? There's a whole bunch of AI stuff that, to be honest, I don't really use a lot these days. But it's there, tasks, and then there's some calculations, some conditions, obviously, which for more complex workflows you would use a lot. So there's like the filter. I use this a lot for filtering like ICPs and people that we should do something with after. So like if they pass a set of filters, then continue. If not, then just stop there. Is sort of how I use a lot of it. There's obviously if, else, or switch, which are also sort of crucial conditional blocks that I use. Delays, I showed you an example of where you might use a delay. It's quite useful. Delay until is for like a specific time, which you can say like delay until, which I thought was quite interesting. I think if you're doing like a one-off thing and you want to say like delay this until June 1st and then we're going to launch like an automated email campaign or something and roll all of them into a sequence, I think that makes sense. Otherwise, I'm not really sure why you would want to hard code a date here. So if you know, let me know, and maybe that will expand my mind on how you use delay until. And then, loops are obviously very useful because you might want to loop through an array of people. So for example, if, let's see, if you are having a meeting with a company and then there's going to be 5 attendees and you get that in an array, so 5 different attendees for the same company, you might want to actually loop and enrich each of those 5 people to do your pre-call research on those people, right? So that's when a loop will be useful. Parse JSON, obviously, if you are receiving a webhook and there's a JSON payload there, then obviously you want to use this parse JSON. And then I use send HTTP request a lot to basically send information from within Attio to other tools in my tech stack. So again, Clay, AirOps, my TypeScript server, and a bunch of other places, right? So usually, if you want to send a webhook, you would just do a post, point it at the webhook URL, and then pass in the API key, and select application JSON, and then you would say this is the payload and this is the data, right? Something like that. You pass that in the body, and now you've sent that successfully to another tool, and then they can pick up the payload and the data, and then do something with it, and then maybe pass it back to Attio. So that is a high-level overview of the workflow builder inside of Attio. I showed you all the trigger blocks, most of the non-trigger blocks, the action blocks, and how I use some of these in my day-to-day work. So hopefully you found this useful. And I am planning on creating more videos on more specific use cases. So if you have any questions around like, how do I do this or how do I do that in regards to workflows or in Attio in general, feel free to let me know, and I'd be happy to take a look and then try to create a video that is helpful for you. Great, thanks.